I wasn't trying to pick him up, I swear. It was one of those gray, drizzly Tuesdays that made everything feel heavier than it should. I had just finished my last lecture of the day and was walking through the parking lot, keys in hand, when I saw him, Milo, standing under the overhang by the science building, looking like a sad, wet cat with his hoodie pulled up and soaked through anyway. He was in my Psych 302 class, always sat 2 rows in front of me, tapping his pen during lectures and laughing too loud at the professor's dry jokes. I didn't know much else about him. We weren't friends. I barely knew his last name. But I recognized him. And more importantly, I recognized that look. No umbrella, no car, and no ride coming. I slowed my step, hesitated for half a second, then called out before I could second guess it. "Hey, you heading home?" He looked over, confused for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm parked right here if you want to ride," I said, gesturing to my ancient Honda Civic. "Unless you're a fan of pneumonia." Milo blinked, clearly surprised, but then jogged over. "Are you sure? I don't want to make you go out of your way or anything." "It's fine," I said. "I live over on Grant U? Fairview, near the gas station. That's basically on the way." I lied. It wasn't, but I didn't care. He smiled, kind of small, kind of grateful, and climbed in. His hoodie dripped onto the floor mat as he buckled in, and he smelled faintly like laundry detergent and rain. I kept my eyes on the road. "Thanks," he said, pushing his wet hair back. "I didn't think this rain was supposed to last." "It never is," I said. But here we are. For the first minute, it was quiet. Just the soft hum of the heater and the wipers squeaking across the glass. Then he started talking. "You're Nate, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I thought so. I've seen you in class. You ask smart stuff." That caught me off guard. Thanks. I try to stay awake." He laughed. A low, warm sound. "I get that." We talked a little more about class. The professor's weird obsession with Freud. The overpriced textbooks. And somewhere in the middle of it, I stopped feeling awkward. Milo was easy to talk to. More open than I'd expected. He was also surprisingly funny, in this dry, sarcastic way that didn't match the soft, artsy vibe he gave off with his tousled hair and oversized hoodie. We pulled up to his street about 10 minutes later, and I slowed down near the curb, but instead of reaching for the handle, he just sat there. "Hey, he said slowly. "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" I glanced at him. "Sure?" He paused, eyes fixed on the dashboard like it held the secrets of the universe. Then, after a beat, he said it. "Are you into guys?" I blinked. "What?" He looked at me then, his expression unreadable but intense, like he was bracing for impact. "You don't have to answer. I've been wondering. Since, last month, when you were talking to Emma in class and said you weren't into girls." Shit. I'd forgotten about that. "Yeah," I said finally. "I am." He nodded, slowly, then gave this half-laugh like he couldn't believe what he was about to say next. "Okay, cool. So here's the wild part." I raised an eyebrow. "That wasn't it?" "Nope." He exhaled. "I think I'm into guys too. I mean, I've never said it out loud before, not to anyone, but I've kind of been thinking about it. A lot. And when you offered me a ride today, I don't know, I just felt like maybe I could say something." I stared at him. He stared at me. Neither of us said anything for a full 5 seconds, and then I did the only thing I could think of. "You want to go get coffee or something?" Milo looked at me, wide-eyed. "Like now?" "Yeah, right now." He grinned, still a little stunned. "Okay, yeah, let's do it." We ended up at this tiny cafe a few blocks down from campus. The kind of place with string lights on the ceiling and mismatched furniture that made it look like a thrift store exploded. I'd been there a few times before, mostly to study, never for something like this. Milo followed me in, his hoodie still damp and clinging to his shoulders, but he didn't seem to care. He looked lighter somehow. Nervous, yeah, but there was something else in the way he carried himself now. Like he'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if he'd fall or fly. He ordered a chai latte. I got a black coffee because I'm boring like that. We found a table near the back, tucked away behind a shelf full of secondhand books. "So," I said, stirring a sugar packet into my drink, even though I never use sugar. "That was a lot." "Yeah," he said, laughing quietly. "Sorry if I dumped that on you out of nowhere." "It's fine," I said. "Actually, I'm kinda honored." He looked at me, his eyes soft. "Really?" "Yeah, I mean, you could have just gone home and overthought it for another 6 months." He smiled. "That's literally what I've been doing." We sat in a weirdly comfortable silence for a few seconds, just sipping our drinks and listening to the soft indie music playing over the speakers. "Have you told anyone else?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not even close, you're the first." "Why me?" "I don't know," he said, fidgeting with the sleeve of his hoodie. "I guess because you just seem like you'd understand. And also because you're—" He stopped. "I'm what?" He flushed a little. "Hot." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" He covered his face with his hands. "God, I can't believe I just said that." "No, wait, say it again. I think I blacked out." He peeked through his fingers, grinning. "I said you're hot, okay? Like, annoyingly hot." I laughed, shaking my head. "You really waited until after I gave you a ride to hit me with that?" He shrugged. "Felt like the right time?" There was a beat of silence where we just kind of looked at each other. Really looked. His eyes were this weird mix of confidence and vulnerability. Like, he wasn't sure if I was going to laugh it off or lean in closer. I didn't do either. Instead, I asked, "You want to come back to mine for a bit?" He blinked. "Like now?" "Yeah. I mean, just to talk more. Or hang out. No pressure." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'd like that." Back at my apartment, I tossed him a dry hoodie from my closet. It was a little too big on him, but he didn't seem to mind. He looked around my place like it was some kind of museum exhibit, studying my bookshelves, my posters, even the dying plant in the window I kept forgetting to water. "This is cozy," he said, settling onto the couch. "Feels very you." "Not sure if that's good or bad," I said, sitting across from him. "It's good," he said quietly. "You feel easy to be around." I didn't know what to say to that. I'd never been called easy before, at least not in a way that didn't come with a smirk. He leaned back, exhaling deeply. "I've been carrying this around for months, you know. This thing. Question. I didn't even know what I wanted to figure out. Just that something felt different. And now," he looked at me, "now it feels less heavy." That hit me harder than I expected. "Good," I said. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight." He nodded. "I know, but talking to you, this feels like a start." He reached over then, not grabbing me, not even touching me, just resting his hand on the couch cushion, close enough that I could, if I wanted, close the gap. I didn't. Not yet. But I didn't move away either. We didn't touch. Not really. Just sat there. Two guys in a quiet apartment, the hum of the fridge in the background, the occasional car passing by outside. Milo's hand stayed where it was, inches from mine, like he was offering something but leaving the choice to me. The funny thing was, I wasn't even nervous. Normally, stuff like this made me spiral. Too many variables, too much second guessing. But with Milo, everything felt slowed down, like I had room to breathe between each beat of silence. "You don't have to do anything you're not sure about," I said, finally. "I know." He glanced over at me, but I wanted to say it, out loud, at least once. "And I'm glad you did." His mouth quirked into a crooked little smile. "Even if it made things weird?" "Who says it's weird?" He shrugged, his fingers tracing invisible lines on the couch cushion. "I don't know. I've never said anything like that to anyone before, and it's not like I'm about to come out swinging rainbow flags or whatever." "You don't have to," I said. "There's no rule book." He nodded, eyes on the space between us again. "You ever know for sure?" What? That I liked guys? Yeah, I leaned back, arms folded. I think I always kind of knew. I mean, I crushed on a kid in 7th grade and pretended it was because he had cool sneakers. Milo laughed. I did that too, except mine was this guy on the swim team in high school. I thought I wanted his shoulders. Turns out I just wanted him. We both cracked up at that. It felt good, the kind of laughter that diffused the tension without erasing the importance of the moment. Like, yeah, this was new and maybe scary for him, but it didn't have to be dramatic. It could just be. We talked more about high school, about his family, how he'd never really dated anyone seriously because he always felt off with girls but couldn't figure out why. I told him about my first kiss with a guy during senior year, how clumsy and confusing it was, but how it still felt more real than anything before. Eventually, I noticed the time. Shit, I said, checking my phone. It's almost midnight. Milo blinked. Seriously? Yeah, you want me to drive you home? He hesitated. Then, would it be weird if I stayed? Just here, I mean. I don't want to go home yet. I looked at him, really looked, the nervous bite on his lip, the way his shoulders tensed like he was waiting for rejection. But it wasn't a come-on. It didn't feel like that. It felt more like safety, like he wasn't ready to go back to being alone with his thoughts. Yeah, I said. You can crash here. I grabbed some extra blankets and tossed him a pillow. He stretched out on the couch while I disappeared into my room to change. When I came back out, he was already lying down, arms folded under his head, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. Hey, Nate, he said softly. Yeah? Thanks for not making this weird. I leaned against the doorframe. Anytime. And then, just before I flicked the light off, he added, I wasn't lying, by the way. About what? You being hot. I laughed, shaking my head as I turned off the light. Sleep, Milo. I didn't sleep that well, not because of anything dramatic. There was no late night creeping into my room, no sudden confessions whispered in the dark. Just the strange energy of having Milo sleeping in the next room, his presence lingering like warmth in the air. I kept replaying everything he'd said. The look in his eyes when he admitted it, the way his voice had faltered, then steadied. It wasn't just that he was coming out, it was the way he had chosen to do it with me. That meant something, I just didn't know what, exactly. I got up around 8, made coffee like I always do, trying not to overthink. I just finished pouring my mug when I heard movement from the couch. Milo sat up slowly, his hair a mess, eyes squinting at the morning light. Morning, I said, sliding a mug across the counter. He blinked, clearly disoriented, then smiled. Thanks. He stood up and stretched, and I realized 2 things. 1, he'd slept in just his t-shirt and boxers, and 2, I was absolutely 100% staring. I quickly turned away. So, he said between sips of coffee, do you usually rescue closeted guys in the rain, or am I just lucky? I chuckled. That was a one-time charity event. Don't get used to it. He grinned, leaning against the counter beside me. There was a pause, and then he said, Can I ask you something kind of messed up? Go for it. Was I obvious? Like, before? I shook my head. Not really. I mean, maybe if I'd been looking for it, but no. You seemed like every other vaguely artsy, low-key, chaotic college guy. Milo laughed. Wow. Harsh, but fair. He took another sip, then looked at me over the rim of his mug. I wasn't trying to hide it, you know. I just didn't want it to be true. I nodded, letting that land. I remembered what that felt like. The way the denial wrapped around you like a weighted blanket, making it easier to just pretend. But last night, he trailed off, then looked at me again. It felt kind of good, like something clicked. I'm glad, I said. You deserve to feel like yourself. There was a long silence. Not uncomfortable, but loaded. Milo set his mug down, then ran a hand through his hair. Okay, this might sound impulsive, he said, but I kind of don't want to go home yet. Or at all today. I raised an eyebrow. You skipping class? Yep. Wow. This really is your gay awakening. He threw a paper towel at me. Shut up! I grinned. What do you want to do? He shrugged. Anything. Everything. I don't know. Can we just hang out? Like normal, but also not normal? I think that's called a day off. And yes, we can do that. So that's what we did. We watched stupid YouTube videos. We played Mario Kart until he rage quit. We made grilled cheese and argued about the right cheese to butter ratio. It was easy. Natural. There was still this charged current between us, but it didn't feel like it was buzzing out of control. It was just there, part of the background. Sometime around mid-afternoon, he flopped onto the couch beside me, his head resting back against the cushion, eyes closed. I don't remember the last time I felt this relaxed, he murmured. I glanced over. You've been holding your breath a long time. Yeah, he said, voice softer now, but not today. And without even thinking about it, I reached over and placed my hand on his. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He just turned his palm up and laced our fingers together. His fingers didn't move, just stayed wrapped in mine, loose but certain, like he wasn't questioning it anymore, just letting it be. We sat there like that for what felt like forever, the TV playing some low-budget cooking show neither of us was watching. I glanced at him. His eyes were open now, staring at the ceiling. His expression was unreadable. Not sad, not scared, just still. You okay? I asked quietly. He nodded, barely. I think so. You sure? He turned his head, and there it was again. That look. Not the shy, uncertain version from the night before. This was steadier, like he was starting to believe in himself a little. I'm not used to being seen, he said. You've always been seen, I replied. Maybe just not the way you wanted. He blinked a few times, then let out a slow breath. Can I tell you something else? Of course. His fingers tightened slightly in mine. You're the first guy the first ever really liked. Like, not just in some vague, maybe I'm curious way. I've been into you since the second week of class. I swallowed hard, caught off guard. Seriously? Yeah, he said, a little embarrassed. I used to hope you'd sit closer. Or ask me something about the readings. I didn't think I had a chance, though. You always look so put together. I laughed. I literally spilled coffee on myself twice last week. Yeah, but you made it look cool. I shook my head, smiling. You have terrible taste. No, he said. I don't think I do. We stayed like that, quiet and close. The kind of silence that didn't need filling. Eventually, he sat up and turned toward me. Can I ask something stupid? Sure. Would it be weird if I kissed you? My heart did a weird little lurch, but I didn't let it show. I leaned in just enough that he'd know I wasn't joking. No, it wouldn't. He hesitated, just for a second, then leaned in. It wasn't dramatic. No swelling music, no slow-motion movie moment. Just a soft press of lips. Cautious, hesitant, warm. He tasted faintly like grilled cheese and cinnamon gum. His hand settled on my knee like he wasn't sure what to do with it, and I could feel how hard his heart was pounding, even through the gentle calm of the kiss. When we pulled apart, he looked stunned, like he couldn't quite believe what he'd just done. That okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, more than okay. He sat back, a little dazed, running his fingers through his hair. Wow. Good wow, or regret wow? Definitely good wow, he said, smiling like he couldn't stop. I just can't believe I did that. Well, you did, I said, nudging him. No takebacks. He laughed again, a real, easy laugh that made something settle in my chest. The rest of the afternoon passed in that same gentle rhythm. Closeness without pressure, soft touches that weren't about anything but comfort. It wasn't about rushing into something intense. It was just the beginning of something that felt real. Around 5, he checked his phone and sighed. I should probably head home before my roommate sends a search party. Want a ride? I asked. He looked at me, then reached over and squeezed my hand. Yeah, but only if I can pay you back with another kiss. The drive back to his place was quiet in a completely different way than before. It wasn't awkward silence. It was full. Like neither of us wanted to ruin the afterglow of whatever had just happened in my apartment. Milo sat in the passenger seat, one leg tucked up, his fingers playing with the edge of my hoodie, the one he was still wearing. Every so often, I'd glance over and catch him smiling to himself like he couldn't believe this was real. When I pulled up in front of his building, he hesitated, didn't unbuckle, didn't move. "You want to come up?" he asked. I considered it, but I knew what I wanted this to be and what I didn't want it to turn into. "I'd love to," I said, "but I think today was perfect. Let's not rush it." He gave me a crooked little smile. "You're making it really hard to fall too fast, you know that?" I laughed. "Good. We'll pace it together." He leaned over and kissed me again. Soft, brief, lingering. Then got out, closing the door gently behind him. I didn't drive away immediately. Just sat there, watching him walk up the steps, hoodie sleeves hanging past his hands, the door closing behind him with a quiet click. That night, I lay in bed for a long time, not spiraling, not overthinking, just feeling it. That strange, quiet excitement when you know something's starting. Not a fling, not a fantasy, but something real. But real life, as always, didn't wait for us to settle into that feeling. 2 days later, in class, things shifted. Milo walked in late, looking like he hadn't slept. He sat 2 rows ahead of me again, like nothing had changed. No glances, no acknowledgement, just silence. I tried not to read into it. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe he didn't want to make things obvious in public. But my stomach was doing that slow, sinking thing it always did when something felt off. After class, I caught up to him outside. "Hey," I said, "everything okay?" He looked startled, like he hadn't expected me to speak to him, then quickly covered it with a forced smile. "Yeah. Just a lot going on. You sure?" He nodded too fast. "Totally. Just, life stuff." I wanted to ask more. Push a little, but something told me not to. Not yet. Instead, I said, "Let me know if you need anything." "Thanks," he said. Then, after a pause, "Nate, I meant everything I said the other day. I need a minute." I nodded. "You've got it." He gave me a quick smile, grateful, tired, and turned away. That night, I didn't hear from him, or the night after that. And for the first time in a long time, I realized how fragile something new can feel, how easily the weight of old fears, old patterns, can slip back in and start rearranging everything before it has a chance to take root. But I wasn't giving up on this, on him, not yet. I waited 3 days before I texted him. "You okay?" Not trying to push, just thinking about you. It sat on read for 2 hours before he responded. "Yeah, sorry, just been in my head. Can we talk?" I didn't even hesitate. "Whenever you're ready." He asked if I could meet him at the little park behind the library. Not too crowded. A quiet spot with benches overlooking a duck pond that always smelled faintly of algae. I got there first, sat under a tree, my legs bouncing more than I cared to admit. When Milo finally showed up, he looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were shadowed, his hair unstyled, and he had that same hoodie I'd given him, like he hadn't changed clothes in 2 days. He sat next to me on the bench, not touching, not saying anything right away. Just looking out at the water, arms folded tight across his chest. "I freaked out," he said eventually. "I figured." "It wasn't about you," he added quickly. "Or us. I mean, not in the way you think. It's just, everything got really loud in my head." I didn't say anything yet. Just let him talk. "I told my roommate," he said. "Well, he kind of figured it out after I came home wearing your hoodie and smiling like an idiot. He guessed. And I didn't deny it." I raised an eyebrow. "That went badly?" He laughed bitterly. He said he was cool with it, but then 2 nights later he made a joke in front of some friends. Something about me checking them out in the shower. Everyone laughed. I tried to laugh too. I felt something twist in my chest. "I thought I could handle it," he said. But then I started thinking, if this is how it starts, what happens when it's not just a joke? What happens when it's more people? What happens when someone I actually care about starts looking at me differently? I finally spoke. You think I'd look at you differently? He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the crack in his armor. No, he said, that's the problem. You don't. And that scares the shit out of me. I turned toward him, leaning forward, elbows on my knees. Milo, I can't protect you from everything. I wish I could. But I can be here. I am here. You don't have to figure it all out right now. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, Do you think I'm doing this wrong? There's no wrong way, I said, just your way. He closed his eyes and nodded. Then, more quietly, I missed you, even though it was only a few days. I missed you too. He opened his eyes. I don't want to run anymore. I just don't know how to stop. You just did, I said. You came here. That's something. There was a long silence. Then, slowly, he reached out. Not dramatic, not some grand gesture. Just slid his hand onto my knee like he needed to know I was real. I covered it with mine. He exhaled. Shaky, but steadying. I'm still scared, he admitted. Me too. He smiled a little. Think we can be scared together? I think that's the only way it works. We sat like that until the sun dipped low behind the trees, casting gold across the pond. When it got cold enough to notice, I offered him my jacket. He took it, and this time I didn't ask for it back. A week later, Milo came over again, not for a crisis talk, not because it was raining, not to figure himself out, just to hang out. He brought a bag of snacks, a blanket he insisted was softer than mine. It wasn't, and a new kind of confidence. Not cocky, not even fully comfortable, but steadier, like he'd stopped trying to run and was finally willing to take a breath. We ended up on the couch again, the same spot we'd sat in that first night. Only now, he was leaning against me, our legs tangled, the blanket over both of us. My TV played something dumb in the background, but neither of us were really watching. You know what's weird? He asked, halfway through a bag of pretzels. What? I keep thinking about that moment. When you offered me that ride. I smiled. What about it? I almost said no. I turned my head. Why? I don't know. Habit, I guess. Saying no to things that might change everything. But you didn't. He looked at me then, something quiet and warm behind his eyes. No, I didn't. And I think it might have saved me. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't try to make it poetic or deep. I just kissed him. Slow, sure. And this time, it didn't feel like the start of something uncertain. It felt like here. Since then, things haven't been perfect. His roommate's still weird, and he's still figuring out how to talk to his family. Some days are harder than others. He still gets that far-off look sometimes, like he's stuck in his own head. But he's not alone there anymore. Now he comes over on Tuesdays, and I walk him to class on Thursdays, and sometimes he'll slip his hand into mine when no one's looking. Other times he doesn't care if they are. Last week, in the middle of campus, he turned to me and asked, Is this what it's supposed to feel like? I raised an eyebrow. What? Being seen and not hating it. And I just smiled. Yeah, that's exactly it. He nodded, quiet for a second. Then, with that same crooked grin from our first drive, he said, Good. I want more of this. And the best part? So do I.